All right, let's go over your homework from Friday. You had to do page 655, and then also do some practice problem on page 697. Let's start with I'm sorry, not 695, 597, numbers 24, 26, and 34. So let's start with those first. All right, so with page 597, you had to solve quadratics by factoring. And so the first problem, you had 3w squared plus 22w plus 7 equals 0. To factor, there's no greater common factor. The leading coefficient is greater than 1, so we have to use the x box method. And so with the x, to get your first term, your top term, you had to take your a times c. So 3 times 7 is 21. And then you take your middle term b and you put it down at the bottom. And you're going to ask yourself, what do you multiply together to get 21, add together to get 22? The only options you have are 1 and 21. So that's your x part. Then your box method, you have to put your first term, so we have 3w squared, your last term, your c term, 7, and then your factor, so I put 21w here and 1w over here. And then I have to ask myself, what did I multiply together to get 3w squared? I did 1w times 3w is 3w squared. And then here, what do I need to multiply to get 1w? So it'll be 1w times 1. And then here, what do I need to multiply together to get 21w? I have to go 7 times 3w, which is 21w, and then 7 times 1 is 7. And so when I finish completing the box here, I have my factors, 3w plus 1 times w plus 7 equals 0. So it's in factored form. I'm just going to now solve the equations basically. And so for this one, I subtracted 1 from both sides. Then I divided both sides by 3 to get w by itself. I got w equals negative 1/3. Over here, I just subtracted 7 from both sides, and I got w equals a negative 7. So your solution is w equals negative 1/3 or w equals negative 7. All right, let's look at our next problem, number 26. Number 26, you were given 7a squared plus 2a equals 5. It's not in a form where I can factor out, so I'm going to need to make this side 0. In order to do that, I had to subtract 5 from both sides. When I subtracted 5 from both sides, I ended up with 7a squared plus 2a minus 5 equals 0. So now I can start factoring out. But once again, I don't have a greatest common factor, and so I have to use my x box method. And so to get my top terms, I had to go a times c. So 7 times a negative 5 is negative 35. Put down the bottom term, the middle term b is 2. So I have to ask myself, what times what gives me negative 25? And when I add them together, I get positive 2. So it's going to be 7 and negative 5. I come over here to my box. I'm going to put the first term, 7a squared, my c term, negative 5. And then my factors, I put negative 5a and then 7a. And then I need to figure out what I need to multiply together to get those inside terms. And so 7a times 1a is 7a squared. 7a times 1 is 7a. Negative 5 times 1a is a negative 5a. And then negative 5 times 1 is negative 5. So I have my terms, 7a minus 5 times a plus 1 equals 0. And then I'm going to solve. I'm going to get a equals 5/7 or a equals a negative 1. For number 34, I do have a greatest common factor. Our greatest common factor is going to be 8. So I'm going to factor out an 8. When I do that, Negative 16 divided by 8 is a negative 2. 8 divided by 8 is a positive 1. And then 8 divided by 24 is positive 3. So I factor that out. 8. And then I have 8 times a negative 2k squared plus k plus 3 equals 0. Okay. The leading coefficient is still greater than 1, so I'm going to have to use the Xbox method again. When I do that, my first term times my last term is going to be negative 6. My middle term is 1. What do I multiply to get together to get negative 6 and add together to get 1? It's going to be 3 and a negative 2. I'm going to put my first term here, negative 2k squared. My last term, c, 3 over here, and then my factors, 3k and a negative 2k. 2k times a negative 1k gives me negative 2k squared. 2k times a negative 1 is a negative 2k. Negative 3 times a negative 1k is 3k. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 3. Then I'm going to have my factors. When I factor it, I have 2k minus 3 times negative k minus 1 equals 0. I set each term to 0. I'm going to solve. I'm going to get k equals 3 halves, or k equals negative 1. Okay, on to the next set of problems, page 655. If you had questions about the Xbox method, don't forget to look at the notes that we took earlier this month about using the Xbox method to factor out. All right, so for page 655, you had to use the square root method. And so for number 4, I had 2x squared minus 32 equals 0. I need to add 32 to both sides, divide by 2, and then I have x squared equals 16. Take the square root of both sides, I get x equals plus or minus negative 4. Same with number 6. Same format, add 42 to both sides, divide to both sides by 2, take the square root of both sides, and you're going to get, not m squared, because I already took the square root of m squared, so it should just be m equals plus or minus 5. I'm going to show you 8 and 10 are going to be no solution, because we're right now not taking the square root of negative numbers. So that's going to be all non-real numbers, so there aren't any solutions for that. Number 12 is a good problem to practice taking the square root of fractions. And so when you subtracted 11 from both sides, you were left with 25b squared equals 4. Divide both sides by 25. You're going to get b squared equals 4 25ths. I didn't simplify because I recognize this two as perfect squares. I'm going to take the square root of both sides. I'm going to get b equals square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 25 is 5. So b equals plus or minus 2/5. Number 14 is a no solution. C for number 16, and I did the work. I don't just write down the answer. I went ahead and subtracted 13 from both sides. That gave me negative 36x squared equals negative 25. Divide both sides by negative 36. I'm going to get x squared equals 25 over 36. Once again, I'm not simplifying because I recognize them as perfect squares. And then when I take the square root of both sides, I get x equals plus or minus 5/6. And so one of the options was positive 5/6, which is what C is. Number 56 was a word problem. You were given this equation, and you wanted to know how long it took to touch the ground. Well, if you touch the ground, the height is going to be 0. So I replace h with 0. Recognize this as a quadratic, and so I'm going to use the square root method. So subtract 38 from both sides. I got negative 38 equals negative 16t squared. Divide both sides by negative 16. And you got positive 38/16 equals t squared. I'm going to take the square root of both sides. I'm left with square root of 38 over 4. And notice that I didn't use the plus and minus. And the reason is we're talking about time. Okay, you have to know what your variables are. We're talking about time. Time is not negative. I'm only interested in the positive aspect of that solution. And so I said to approximate, and I just took the square root of 34 divided by 4, and the time is going to be approximately 1.54 seconds. Alright, if you have questions, you guys can email me. Otherwise, I am going to have you work on some more practice today. Just solving quadratics by factoring. You're going to use the greatest common factor, and then also the square root method. Your guest teacher is going to hand those worksheets out to you. I have colored pencils by the fishbowl, so if you want to use that as you're working through the worksheet. All right, hopefully I will see you tomorrow. Take it easy and have a great day.